Well, as the last of these clouds pushed out of the area, you see those winds clear down and calm down as we see that sunset make its way in. Now we're going to drop down about 10 more degrees into those 40s because we're going to lose a lot of that heat under this high pressure. Now we're on the recharge again right now, looking at the temperature change over the last 24 hours, leveling in those 50s. That's that southerly flow. Then you see those really high winds keep us in those cooler temperatures, but we fought our way up into the 70s, and we're already cooling off right now down into those 60s with that dry air making its way in. But we're looking for the moisture exchange right now as we begin to see this high pressure push over us. 61 in San Angelo, everybody else joining us in a combination of 50s and 60s. Looking like 8 degrees across the entire Concho Valley, but in a shorter area right now between Menard and Junction. That's where we're still seeing a lot of those drier temperatures and those cooler, higher winds, push off towards the east. And of course, we're still seeing 4 degrees between Sterling City all the way down there into Junction. And of course, still holding on to some of the heat to the south right now as those winds are really calming down. But of course, we're looking at the moisture as we see the dew points pushing down near those freezing points in those drier areas, while the humidity indices haven't gone up that much, about 10% across the entire region, but really drawing off towards the east as that moisture begins to slide off more and more towards the east with that high pressure pushing in from the west. This is where that moisture is going to continue to wrap around and push off towards the northeast. We'll see how bad it gets. But there we can start to see the return of some of this moisture, the accumulation, the concentration again coming up from the Gulf into the Concho Valley. This is again by Saturday night. Now we're going to be looking for the return of this cloud cover. Here's the long wave pattern right now. This long wave trough, that's the one that's still causing problems across the Gulf Coast. But here's that high pressure building in just in time for rodeo. That's going to keep things calm and in the 80s, if not pushing into the 90s. This low pressure is going to be held off by that ridging, but by the beginning of next week, we're going to see it start to make its way in, and we should see some of those clouds and some of that stormier weather. But we're waiting to see just how severe it's going to get because it's going to have a lot of time to recharge. Of course, we're seeing how damaging this was. We did see a lot of high damaging winds from it, tornado warnings, tornado watches, again, flash flooding pushing across the area. Now, this storm is a lot further down to the south in latitude than we'd like. They're usually up here near Nebraska. We're always on the tail end of those cold fronts, but you definitely saw a lot of this cloud cover, which is usually more characteristic towards those frontal systems that are more towards the north. So seeing clouds push this far from down to the south, pretty unusual when we're talking about the ridging that's making its way in right behind it. Now, the futurecast is going to show you how it's pushing off towards the east, but of course, this would be what we would call the baroclinic head or the comma. Then, of course, we're looking at the baroclinic leaf off towards the south. They're a lot further apart, and they're rotating in two different portions. Pretty strong. Last time we saw this, we saw a lot of snow associated with it, but we're looking off the west coast again. There's that circulation making its way down from the west, and if you get a good look at both of these storms at the same time, that's high pressure right in between it, and then they're going to see the subtropical jet fight its way over the Sierra Madres, and that's where we're hoping to see some of this cloud cover make its way in from the west as we begin our way into next week. So tonight, dropping back down into the 40s under those clear skies and those calmer conditions. Then tomorrow, 40-degree run up into those 80s, and get out there to the rodeo and really enjoy it because it's going to be pretty perfect. Things are going to continue to warm up as we make our way through that weekend as we get up into the 90s and those calmer conditions. Overnight, we're going to see those lows finally make their way up into the 60s. Things definitely feeling more like summer as that's where we're going to continue to level out as we're looking for the return of that cloud cover. Of course, the atmosphere is getting ready to recharge for some of that severe weather, but let's get out there and enjoy it while we still can. Stay tuned for more after the break. You're watching KSAN News at 10.